Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a fascinating academic study that completely flips the script on why expatriates succeed or, totally fail when they get assigned abroad. We're looking at a pivotal 2011 study by Pinto, Cabral Cardozo, and Werther that takes a hard look at organizational culture and its true impact on cross-cultural adjustment. Here's how we're going to break this down today. We'll start with an introduction to expatriation adjustment, dive into the Goffey and Jones model, lay out the research hypotheses, check out the methodology, unpack those key findings, and wrap up with the final implications. Let's jump right into Section 1, Introduction to Expatriation Adjustment and what we call the dominant myth. So, for years, there's been this widely held belief in the global business world. The traditional paradigm literally just assumes that the biggest hurdle for an expat is the sheer shock of a brand new national culture. The thought process is simple, right? The greater the cultural novelty, the greater the difficulty adjusting. Basically, moving from New York to London should theoretically be a breeze compared to moving to Tokyo, simply because the culture gap is smaller. But, and this is a big but, as the researchers note, the empirical evidence backing this up is actually pretty mixed. Which naturally brings us to a huge question. If national cultural differences don't actually dictate whether an expat sinks or swims, if the country outside their office window isn't the main problem, what role does organizational culture play? I mean, what if the real challenge doesn't lie out there in the world, but actually right inside the company walls? That takes us to Section 2, the Goffey and Jones model, and how we actually go about defining company culture. To figure this out, the researchers needed a reliable way to measure the actual vibe inside an office, completely separate from the country it's in. So they brought in the Goffey and Jones framework. This model breaks organizational culture down into two main dimensions. First up, we've got sociability. Think of this as the friendly water cooler chat. It's the level of friendliness, shared ideas, and just general socialization between team members. Then, on the other hand, we have solidarity. This is that intense, shared mission driving the team forward. It's the commonality of interests and goals among members, regardless of whether they're actually friends outside of work. Now, what's fascinating is that both of these dimensions have dual natures. They both have amazing positive attributes, but they can also totally backfire. For example, high sociability promotes incredible commitment to your colleagues, but, well, it might also mean you tolerate poor performance because you don't want to upset a buddy. On the flip side, high solidarity gives you crystal clear mutual goals, but an obsessive focus on targets, that can quickly turn into a pretty oppressive and ruthless work environment. When you mix and match these traits, you get distinct company cultures. One standout example the study highlights is the mercenary organization. These are places with super high solidarity but low sociability. They rely on this exact dynamic to keep an intense, laser-like focus on hitting shared targets, totally uninhibited by office politics or socializing. In these environments, people accept conflict because, at the end of the day, relationships are just seen as instrumental to getting the job done. All right, Section 3, Research Hypotheses, setting the stage for the study. Armed with this cultural model, the researchers set out to test some very specific predictions about what actually helps an expat adjust. Based on all the existing literature, they made three main bets. First, they predicted that massive national cultural differences would naturally decrease adjustment. Second, they figured high sociability would definitely make the transition a lot easier. And third, they predicted that high solidarity would specifically boost work adjustment. Let's see if they hit the nail on the head. Moving on to Section 4, Methodology, or how they actually went about testing this theory. To test these assumptions, the researchers couldn't just rely on a few anecdotes. They needed real data. So they designed a rigorous survey and successfully gathered data from a really robust sample of 166 highly educated expatriates. For this specific type of targeted global research, that is a very solid sample size. And this wasn't a homogeneous group either. These 166 individuals hailed from 29 different nationalities and were stationed across 39 different countries, giving us a truly global perspective. Fun fact, the gender breakdown actually tracked slightly above the average rate of women in the international workforce at the time. The researchers used detailed 5-point and 7-point Likert scales to measure everything from cultural novelty to psychological comfort, making it highly measurable. Which brings us to the most exciting part, Section 5, the key findings, and a total paradigm shift. Let's dive right into these results because the data revealed a massive plot twist. Astonishingly, both cultural novelty, the actual differences between the two countries, and workplace sociability had absolutely no significant impact on adjustment. None. Zero. It literally didn't matter if the country's culture was wildly different or if the office was super friendly and social. But high solidarity, both at the home office and in the host country, that absolutely did predict a successful adjustment to both the work and general environment. The data paints a really clear picture here. Expats thrive not when an office is just merely friendly, but when there's a highly structured focus on common goals. The study shows that adjustment is significantly higher when the destination culture is perceived as either communal, meaning it's high in both solidarity and sociability, or mercenary, meaning it's high in solidarity but low in sociability. The common denominator for success isn't friendliness, it's solidarity. This really highlights the core revelation of the whole study. The researchers concluded that high sociability might actually increase uncertainty for a newcomer. Think about it. If an office relies heavily on complex friendship networks and a bunch of unspoken insider social rules, an outsider is going to feel totally lost. But solidarity creates clear roles and a structured focus. It reduces the massive uncertainty of an international move because you know exactly what the strategic goals are and what's expected of you, and that makes adjusting so much easier. Finally, let's wrap things up with Section 6, Final Implications, putting this data into action. So, what does this big scientific discovery actually mean for the future of global business assignments? It really boils down to three key practical takeaways. Number one, organizations have got to stop assuming that moving someone to a culturally similar country is a guarantee for an easy adjustment. It just isn't. Number two, sociability takes a ton of time to build, and it often gets lost across borders. But shared goals, those endure, regardless of geography. And number three, companies absolutely need to cultivate solidarity and foster shared objectives to actually ensure their expats succeed. Today's explainer was based entirely on this groundbreaking 2011 research by Pinto, Cabral Cardozo, and Werther. They essentially proved that a clear, united mission completely outshines a friendly smile when you're thousands of miles from home. So, as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with one final thought to ponder. Is your organization relying way too heavily on being friendly when what your people really need to succeed is a united mission?